Welcome back to the Masterful Mindset series as part of the Science of Winning podcast here. So I was asked to do a series on how do you actually stay at your optimal level and keep that top mindset when things seem to be falling apart around you. And this is very relevant for the fellow Canadians out there, as well as many of the Americans I'm hearing as well, because I'm part of the agriculture sector. And I can tell you there's a lot of farmers down south and in the U.S. that are getting really scared in terms of what's happening with the tariffs. But how do you keep that masterful mindset, a mindset where you're on your top of your game, you're able to be creative, you're able to deal with adversity and create opportunity when there's havoc around you? So I talked about something specific yesterday, and today I'm going to be talking about a second factor that's very, very important to keep that masterful mindset, and that is being part of an effective peer group. The reason why I say effective is there's many peer groups out there, but they aren't very effective. And there's a wide range of stats out there that actually show the positive effects and implications of being part of a peer group. In fact, a number of the studies, it ranges from you're 4 times more likely to achieve your results or your game plan to having 38% increase in your performance. So there's a range of stats out there, and it depends on the study and it depends on the field that you're in. But fundamentally, in the business world, here's what we've seen, because we run peer groups and the style of our training and coaching is in group settings. And we do that for a very specific reason, because we know that the likelihood of people changing behavior and having that masterful mindset is significantly higher when they're part of an effective peer group. I would say it's probably 3 times, a person is 3 times more likely to have a masterful mindset if they're part of an effective peer group. So what does an effective peer group do? Or what does it actually result in? This is very, very important here. An effective peer group does a number of particular things. First of all, it allows you to be more creative because you have other minds in the room that are sharing their ideas that you can also implement in your business or in your personal life as well. So I'm not going to make any distinction right now between your professional world and your personal life, because everything that's happening right now is going to impact your personal life as well. Okay, so all of this turmoil with tariffs eventually impacts people's personal lives, and it's already started to happen. So there's a higher level of creativity. That's the first one. There's also a higher level of moral support. We all need support. It doesn't matter how awesome you think you are as a CEO and an executive leader, as a business owner. We all need support. In fact, it's one of the key factors for having what we call ultra performance, is having an effective support group. And that means that you're getting the moral support as a person. You know that there are people there to back you up in times of challenge, that you are not alone. Very, very important for all of us, because we're all human beings. That moral support helps to generate energy and create energy. And as you know, if you listen to my previous podcast, energy is your most vital resource. And that's why I keep coming back to this point of having an effective peer group. An effective peer group keeps the energy high, right? They don't bring the energy down. They keep it very, very high at that realistic, optimistic level. That's where your energy needs to be for your peer group. So when everybody's consciously and intentionally trying to keep that energy up, you're going to walk out of those peer group sessions or calls or whatever that format looks like for you with higher energy, which again is required to be very effective in your role and just be a healthy human being. And your brain requires energy to be able to process things, to make decisions, to be effective, right? So the more energy you have, the more effective you're going to be in terms of having a masterful mindset. You also have the ability to have people as a sounding board. For CEOs, this is very important, because it's not always easy, especially in these times, to go to your board of directors, because they're looking to you for direction as well. They think you're the person that has some kind of a strategy, can deal with these adversities. And that's the same thing with your senior leadership team. They're looking to you for guidance. So having a sounding board outside of that environment is very, very, very critical, because being a CEO or a business owner or leader can sometimes be a very lonely role. Accountability is another factor, and it's self-accountability. You're more likely to be accountable to yourself when you're in a peer group. You're also going to be more accountable because you're accountable to other people as well within the peer group. And then you're also going to be more accountable because you're accountable to the entire peer group. Okay, so this is very important. There's multiple levels of accountability when you're in a peer group. You don't want to let maybe specific people within your peer group down. You don't want to let the entire peer group down as well when you commit to doing things. So there's a higher level of accountability on multiple fronts being part of a peer group. Now, part of the creativity aspect as well is you just have new ways of thinking. When people come in there with having gone through the trenches themselves, having gone through these challenges, they're gonna enable you and empower you to have different ways of thinking. And as Einstein said, you can't solve the problem with the same thinking that created the problem in the first place. So we have to have different perspectives and different ways of thinking of things, and then it's ultimately your choice to be able to make the decision you need to make. So in summary, an effective peer group is extremely, extremely powerful to create that masterful mindset that you need to maintain through these times of adversity. And I can say I'm part of two peer groups myself. So I'm part of a peer group from a business perspective. Okay, so I'm part of other peer groups as well. But from a business perspective, I'm part of two peer groups, one in the US and one in Canada. And so I get extreme value from one of them. It's incredibly powerful. And the other one, I would say I get fairly good value from. So I can share from personal experience that being part of a peer group is extremely important. We run peer group style training and coaching because we know it's far more effective for the people that go through our programs and the people that we coach as well. So in any situation, when I have an individual CEO that I'm working with, I try to figure out a way to get them into a peer group. Now, it's not always that easy because a lot of the conversations that we have are extremely confidential, like not even a single other person can know, not a board of directors, not even their spouse, for example, some of the stuff that we discuss. But in any situation where they're part of or able to be part of a peer group, I always encourage that and create that climate within our organization, within the people that we work with. Now, to bring it back in terms of an effective peer group, there are some very specific things that are required to have an effective peer group. As I mentioned before, not every peer group is effective. I would say the vast majority are not effective. And there's a number of reasons why, but I'm going to share with you what are the things you should be looking for when you are part of a peer group or if you're thinking about starting a peer group yourself. Number one, the facilitator. This is by far the most important thing. The facilitator has to be extremely skilled in the ability to facilitate a high performing, or what we call an ultra performing peer group. Okay, it's not just your average facilitation skills. This person has to be extremely masterful themselves. So that's the first thing. You also have to have a playbook for the peer group, which is what are the norms that we are abiding by? What are the principles and values? And what's offside? So what's onside versus offside? Very important because everybody on your peer group or in your peer group needs to be maintaining that cohesiveness. The third thing is that it has to be challenging. I've seen so many peer groups, you go in there, it's mundane. People just share stuff and then away they go. There's no challenge to it as well. The whole purpose of a peer group is to learn and to grow. And in order to learn and grow, you must challenge yourself, you must challenge your peers, and you must challenge the group as a whole as well. So that's another prerequisite. Through the journey of having a peer group, there needs to be collective learning. So that collective learning enables people to grow as well, not only through the challenge, but some kind of training or growth. We love this. I absolutely love this. When I work with and coach business leaders, I love the teaching aspect because when people learn, it's the old adage, which is basically you teach a person to fish and they can fish forever. Very, very important. It's not just about going in there and talking to each other. It's about learning, shared learning, having shared aha moments. Those moments aren't going to be the exact same, but going through specific shared and collaborative learning is very important for a peer group. And then problem solving. Fundamentally, there needs to be a session or the ability for people to be able to not only solve their own problems, but also help other people solve problems as well. If I was to say, what is the biggest challenge when it comes to peer groups? It's execution. And when I say execution, it's actually people walking out of those peer group sessions and actually executing on something. So the vast majority of peer groups fall short of that. So there has to be collaborative work. What do I mean? There's peer groups out there for CEOs, executives, business owners where you go there, you talk about problems, you get solutions, and then people walk away and they don't touch base with each other for another month or 2 months or whatever the frequency is as part of these peer groups. And you will see that the vast majority of people do not execute. So what we do is we call it a power trio. That's a principle that we put into our peer groups, into our training and coaching. It's a power trio where you are partnered with 2 other people, not just one person. You are partnered with 2 people, because it's too easy to not be accountable when there's just one other person. You get too comfortable. But when there's 2 other people, the level of accountability actually goes up and the level of collaboration goes up as well. So not only are you a part of a peer group with a bigger group itself, you are part of a power trio. That is extremely effective because that's what we call collaborative work that actually gets done, and there's an execution aspect to it. So to sum it up, another way to remain masterful, I can't stress enough how powerful this is to be part of an effective peer group. And there's a number of reasons as to why it's so beneficial, as I mentioned before. But my recommendation is, if you are not part of a peer group right now, become part of a peer group. Okay, that's your first thing. In Canada, one of the peer groups that I'm a part of is the McKay CEO Forums Network. It's extremely powerful for CEOs, but also the executives out there as well. So take a look at that. There's other peer groups as well. I'm not just promoting them. There's other peer groups, but I'm part of McKay because I align with the values. In the States, it's a private group that I'm part of extremely high-performing entrepreneurs. I would say that the cream of the crop, the top grade entrepreneurs, some of them the top in their states within the US. That peer group is extremely powerful. So if you aren't part of one, go seek one out. And if you are part of one that's not effective, bring to light why it's not effective to help it be more effective. And if you are still finding in the very near future, don't wait. In the very near future, if things don't change, find yourself another peer group. They're extremely powerful. Like I mentioned before, through my personal experience, okay, I've seen people be 3 times more effective in terms of their performance and results by being part of an effective peer group. So hopefully you take that to heart, and hopefully that's part of your strategy going forward.